Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Designing for the Desert Sustainable Building Strategies for Arid Regions. I'm Udit Mehta, Director of Green Grid Designs, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's session. Throughout the series, we've looked at sustainability in the desert from many different perspectives, from climate responsive designs and microclimates to water, technology, urban planning, and the way we manage and deliver projects. Today, we're looking at sustainability through the lens of luxury development and design excellence. Because in a market like the UAE, where luxury residential, hospitality, and mixed use developments continue to grow rapidly, an important question is, can luxury and sustainability actually reinforce each other? Can we create developments that deliver a strong design identity and exceptional user experience while also responding intelligently to the reality of a desert climate? And that's exactly the conversation we're going to have today. Introducing Revathi. It's my pleasure to welcome Revathi Prasannan Kumar. Revathi is a design manager with more than 10 years of experience across luxury, residential, hospitality, commercial, and mixed use developments in the UAE, Oman, and Bahrain. She brings experience across the full project lifecycle, from concept and design development through consultant management, authority approvals, and construction delivery, with a strong focus on design leadership and disciplinary coordination. She is currently involved in leading the design and execution of major luxury developments, including branded residential and hospitality projects, while overseeing a wider portfolio of developments across Dubai and Ras Al Khaimah. What makes today's discussion particularly relevant to our series is her perspective on bringing together design excellence, brand identity, functionality, wellness, and sustainability, and understanding how these priorities can work together rather than compete with one another. So, today we'll explore what luxury means in a changing market, how we design for the realities of the desert, the role of materials, water, and building performance, and how technology and wellness are shaping the next generation of premium developments. Revathi, welcome to Designing for the Desert. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Please take us through your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Udit. A very, very good afternoon to each and every one of you. I think Udit has given a very good brief already about me. I have been working all my experiences in GACC, and working in the Middle East has given me a first of experience of designing in one of the world's most demanding climates, in fact. So every project challenges us to think beyond the aesthetics alone. So that's where how the buildings can be resilient, efficient, sustainable, and still deliver exceptional user experiences. So today I'd like to share a couple of practical strategies, certain industry insights, and real world approaches to designing for these arid regions. And whether you're an architect, engineer, maybe a developer, sustainability professional, student, I hope you all leave the session with ideas that can directly be applied to your own projects. So let's start.
All right, I think the presentation's visible.
Is it okay? Uti, just give me a minute because I think there's a glitch.
Sure.
Is the screen visible right now?
Not yet.
Okay, I hope it is visible now.
Yes, it's visible now.
Okay. So we are, as I mentioned, we are looking at designing for the arid regions, designing for the desert. It's not so designing in the arid regions is not simply about withstanding high temperatures. It's about creating buildings and communities that can allow people thrive, that can deliver comfort, resilience, and sustainability while using resources very efficiently. Being in such a climate, we definitely have challenges that we will be looking at. So before we discuss solutions, let's see why designing in the desert is fundamentally different from designing in the temperate climates. The desert presents a unique combination of environmental challenges, as we know. If we look at each by each, the first and the foremost, as we all know, the extreme heat. So during the summer months, we all know it's usually about 45 degrees Celsius that we start, and that's just the air temperature. While the exposed surfaces, like say for example the roof or the pavements and all, and certain even facade elements, dark facade elements, these all become extremely much hotter than these. So this definitely affects the occupant comfort and the building performance, which definitely is directly implying on the energy consumption as well. Another one is the solar radiation. So now, being in Dubai, where we have very, unlike the places that we have frequent cloud cover, we all throughout the year we are blessed with abundant sunshine. Well, this definitely is an opportunity that this has ample opportunity for renewable energy generation, but at the same time what happens is there's a lot of load. There's a lot of heat that comes in, right? So continuous solar exposure definitely brings in a lot of load on the electricity usage as well. So every square meter of glazing and every facade orientation also matters here. Another challenge is the presence of dust and the sandstorms. These influence not only the facade, but also the HVAC performances, the maintenance schedules, and also the facade elements tend to weather out too quickly. Another one is one of the most valuable resources that we have, which is water. And we know in Dubai we do not have, the rainfall is very scanty. So water being a very precious resource, therefore, in such an arid weather. So this has to be considered, and water has to be very efficiently used right from the onset of the design process. There are different ways which we will be looking at. Now, perhaps one of the most significant implications here is the high demand for cooling. So all the extreme heat and the radiation that we had mentioned earlier is implying as to, or it's directly proportional to the city's electricity demand. So this means if we are able to improve the performance of the building, it's definitely going to reduce the operational costs. So these are directly proportional. Thereby, it will definitely reduce the carbon emissions and so on and so forth. So finally, the last and the most critical point here is also about how, at what pace that we are in, right? Say, for example, Dubai has evolved from being a mere desert settlement into one of the world's leading global cities. So the pace of urban development is really massive in here. So as these cities become denser with population and denser with, and of course to meet needs of the population, denser with the buildings and or infra, all of these we experience a lot of urban heat island effect, which is where uh, concrete, asphalt, or any kind of dark surfaces tend to hold heat energy, which in turn adversely affects the comfortable living of people. So Dubai tending to grow like this, of course, is there's a lot of opportunities for economic development at the same time, ensuring that. So as designers, it is our responsibility not only to create iconic buildings here, but we need to ensure that these cities remain what we say remain simply comfortable and livable for the generations to be coming in. Now, so having said all of this, we have to, before we go into the latest advanced technologies that we had to go, that we have right now, or which are being incorporated, we need to start from the scratch, where we'll initially look at the traditional design, desert architecture, or the main elements, key elements that were part of this. That time, those traditional architecture was not merely about aesthetics. It was indeed a very intelligent response to the climate, which was developed through, of course, a lot of thought and from trial and error. Now, if we look at each by each, initially we can see the barjil. Barjil, in fact, it's basically just wind tower. So here, what happens is the wind tower is able to catch the prevailing winds, and that brings in the wind into the space in the lower area. So what happens is that cool air naturally tends to cool the space that we are in, and hot air naturally it raises above. That way, the wind that is how the barajil or the wind tower used to work. I think in historic monuments like in Fahidi, or we still can see these, of course, aesthetically prevailing as well. The next other important key factor is the internal courtyard. So rather than exposing buildings to the harsh external climates, homes were organized into these little around these shaded small areas, which had a lot of water bodies, a lot of vegetation that was around. So what happens is these created such cooler microclimate, where the courtyard also brought in daylight and load of fresh air, but it was different from the stark harsh climatic conditions outside. So this concept created comfort and, of course, brought in social interaction and privacy. The third factor is about usage of thick walls, which were made from very locally available materials then. So, locally available materials like maybe coral stone, limestone, mud bricks. So, the choice of materials were also very intelligently done in such a way that these materials had higher thermal mass, meaning the heat would not be absorbed, absorbed only slowly during the day, and it would be released again very slowly after the sunlight. So, in that way, the indoor temperature would always be maintained to be very ambient and comfortable. And the last fine one that we have is the Mashrabiya screens, which is beautiful wooden lattice screens that served several functions at once. So they shaded the windows. They shaded windows from the direct sunlight and reduced glare, encouraged a lot of natural ventilation. Of course, same time providing privacy as well. At the same time, when sunlight fell on them, they also created strikingly beautiful patterns, which was aesthetically appealing as well. So, all of these, what's fascinating about all of these ideas is that they have not disappeared. We are still incorporating these ideas into today's architecture. Like today, we are using double skin facades, higher performance envelopes, building envelopes, perforated metal screens that we are using. We are using solar chimneys, etc., etc. There are so many ways that these are being replicated. So architects and designers like us. So this is becoming one of a great opportunity for us to combine these natural or traditional methods with the modern technology, which will finally bring in innovation. So in a way, the future of sustainable design lies in actually discovering the intelligence of the past. So having said all of this, now these are again, we are going through the passive cooling methods, and throughout we will see the natural ventilation, the thermal mass, all of these contributed up where coming from the traditional architecture. Now, if the traditional architecture teaches us anything, it's about the building itself should provide the first line of environmental control. Manning, this brings us to the, I mean, that is the basic foundation of sustainable architecture by itself, which are passive design strategies. Now let's look at some of the passive design strategies right now. Okay, now we have understood certain environmental challenges in designing for the arid climates. If we have to look at certain passive design strategies that improve the building performances to the local. So what we do is we design, as a designer, we design it in such a way that the building itself performs to an extent in such a way that before having to rely on a mechanical system. So in hot regions like the UAE or in Dubai, these decisions are usually or are to be made at a very, very early stage, so that it has a very impactful, we are able to generate an impactful design. The first, we'll look at certain passive techniques. The first one is the building orientation. One of the simplest and one of the most critical decisions is how the building is to be oriented onto the site, or how the building is to be positioned onto the site. Say, for example, we always, as we do a sun path study, we do the prevailing wind, the wind flow, all of these climatic study we have been doing. So that too for particular region and for particular sites. When we are able to design in such a way, say for example, if we are minimizing the openings on east and west, which will actually reduce the sun exposure to the sun, direct sun, while at the same time we give ample openings on the north side, because there at no point of the time you will have direct sun hitting. It's always going to be so. That will bring in a lot of light, but it will omit the unwanted heat. So these are very critical design decisions that we take at the onset of the project. Now, second is the compact building mass. A compact building has lesser external surface that is exposed to the solar radiation. This means the heat that will be entering into the building, which is improving thermal performance, while also making the structure more efficient to construct and at the same time to be maintained as well. Another key factor is the external shading, which is often what we say as the first line of defense for the building, because there are different ways of deep overhangs, recessed balconies, pergolas, vertical fins, louvers, even sometimes vertical gardens. So many methods. So this is more really effective than trying to remove the heat at a later stage, because what we're doing is we are trying to block the heat before entering to the building. So there's a particular saying that we say, we do not, in design, we do not create the furnace and then try and cool it. Rather, we try and avoid bringing the heat in from the beginning. So that is exactly the practical thing that we are trying to do here. Another important strategy is the natural ventilation, the cross ventilation. So as I had mentioned earlier, when we're doing the climatic study, we try and understand the wind flow. We understand, so the building will be oriented in such a way that there is natural airflow. Though of course we have winters as well. So it's not always the hot air. Where we will always try and use maximum cross ventilation to bring in air movement, so that will at least bring the space more, at least it will make the space more comfortable. Night flushing also takes place, which is the advantage of making use of cooler nighttime temperatures with the same principle. And finally, we also have thermal mass, which is mainly about the material choices that we do. The ability to absorb heat slowly and then release it gradually over time. So this is actually the basic principle that we had seen in the traditional architecture. While when used correctly alongside of insulation and ventilation, thermal masses helps, it stabilizes the indoor temperatures, and therefore it would bring down the cooling loads. So here, what's important to remember is that these strategies are most effective when they are integrated together. It's not that we do one of this and it's sufficient, but once you bring them all together, like say for example the orientation, that will influence the shading. The shading affects the cooling demand, and then the ventilation, it will complement this. The thermal mass will add on to this, and together what happens is then we are able to create the building that are naturally more comfortable. Of course, with the heat that we have right now, we will need mechanical services, but at least at the beginning, we are in a position where this is more comfortable. So as designers, many of these decisions are made at a very, very early stage, at the onset of or the onset of concept stage. That's why early collaboration between architects, designers, engineers, sustainability professionals, all of these will play a major role here. So that these are all informed decisions and they are all thoughtful design decisions taken when we are working together. So, having discussed about the passive methods, now we will see one of the most critical aspects of the building, of any building in the hot climate, which is the building envelope by itself. The building envelope is basically nothing, it's just the protective skin of any building. It separates the indoor from the outdoor. So, it's just the barrier. And as we said, we have really high temperature outside in the air temperature. So the building envelopes plays a very critical role in determining how much heat is going to enter the building. And we will look into parts of these. So one of the most important components of this is glazing. If you look at the buildings all around us, most of them are 80 to 90% glazed. So glass is, of course, it's beautiful. It brings in a lot of daylight. We get a lot of view, but at the same time, it is also the major source of unwanted heat gain. So one of the key elements is high performance glazing. High performance glazing in such a way that it will reduce the solar heat while allowing natural light into the building. So low E or double, or even in certain projects we are using triple glazing, which brings in lesser solar heat gain while allowing ample daylight into the internal space, which will in fact help with the occupant comfort. So as I mentioned, we are double glazing has become kind of a standard practice for UAE, but in certain premium projects we are also using triple glazing. So what happens is that the gap between the panes is acting as, or the air that is trapped between the panes is acting as a barrier, as an insulating barrier. So that way the temperature will be varied from indoor to outdoor. Now beyond glazing, the wall assembly itself is quite important. Materials, the choice of materials, like say for example AAC blocks, maybe reflective cooling roofs, all of these significantly they reduce the heat transfer between the indoor and the outdoor. So it's not always about the walls that I'm talking about. It's always it's the facade systems. It's about the roofs, each and every part of it. So as designers, these are not again isolated decisions. The envelope should be considered as an integrated system. At the same time, well, I mean, it's not enough that it is aesthetically appealing, but at the same time, these things, along with shading, glazing, insulation, roof, all of these are taken into consideration. And one of the most effective ways to reduce operational energy is not just by installing or having a larger HVAC system, but by ensuring that the lesser the heat enters into the building from the beginning. And in many residential projects, the architectural vision often includes larger glazed facades, yes, which is because aesthetically we are trying to bring iconic buildings always. But at the same time, we have facades, so these to maximize views and natural light as well. So as designers, it is that we have to strike a balance that it needs to be visually appealing. At the same time, specifications of the glazing or shading devices or even the materials have to be really taken into consideration. Now, having said all of this, now we need to look at the material selection in such arid weathers. Oops, sorry. Yeah. So material selection. Now, the material selection being in such a weather has a very profound influence on a building's performance. It's about the durability, of course. It's about operational efficiency, environmental impact. So in the past, sustainable discussions actually focus primarily just on reducing the operational cost. Things have slightly changed. Today we understand the importance of embedded carbon embedded carbon emissions that happen. So, while, say, for example, while the manufacturing of the material happen, or while transporting it, or installing, or during the maintenance as well, and eventually even how it affects during the disposal of the materials. So, all of these have a direct impact with the embedded carbon and how energy efficient it can be. So, there are critical decisions that have to be taken at this point. Another important consideration is sourcing the material locally as and when possible. Now what happens with this is, again when the transportation emissions will reduce, and we'll be able to shorten the supply chain and all of that. But beyond all of that, once we are able to choose a material that is locally available, the first and the foremost thing is that such a material will be better suited to that particular region. So there is no compatibility issues there. Another one is thermal performance, which is very critical. Materials with appropriate thermal properties, which help reduce heat transfer through the building envelope. All of these have to be taken into account. Now, if you're looking at certain examples, just quickly going through a couple of them. GRC, like glass reinforced concrete. This offers lightweight facade solutions with excellent flexibility, and is of course a popular choice among architecture features. Another one is ultra high performance concrete, UHPC, again with exceptional strength and durability, elegant facades, and we can use more, allowing thinner elements as well. So there is it's more flexible. Natural stone, of course, is and always was valued, always, for its durability, the thermal mass, and timeless appearance, although a responsible sourcing still remains an important consideration. Porcelain, of course, is particularly very well suited to the desert because of its low water absorption, UV stability, and resistance. And of course, something that is non-negotiable is the aluminum systems, which remain fundamental to almost all the modern facade designs. So their recyclability and corrosion resistance, all of these make them, and its high performance glazing system make them really indispensable. So ultimately, selecting materials is never about choosing the most advanced product. It's about selecting the right material for the right application. What are we designing for? What designing for? What location are we in? How does it perform, or what is the durability that we are looking at, how long, all of these. So in luxury developments, clients often focus on the visual appeal of materials as usual, but as design professionals, our role is to ensure that every material not only enhances the project's aesthetic part, but also performs effectively in the region's demanding climate. So now we spoke about material. However, sustainability in the desert extends beyond energy, because anytime we talk about sustainability and desert, it's always about energy. Now we need to look at something very, very more critical, which is water. We will see how strategies for water conservation in arid climates. So when we think about sustainability, as I said, it is always about energy that we are talking about. Here in UAE, we receive very little annual rainfall, very scanty, and the majority of the potable water is produced through desalination. And desalination as a process is highly energy intensive. So, which simply means that every liter of water that we save is directly contributing to reducing the energy and consumption, and of course reducing the carbon emissions. So these are very responsible decisions that we need to be taking. Now, the first strategy, we'll look at certain strategies as to how this can be dealt with. The first and the foremost one is low flow fixtures. Now, modern water efficient taps, shower heads, and all those fixtures are significantly reducing water consumption while at the same time maintaining user comfort. These technologies have become, in fact, part of the standard practice, and that too in many of the green building certification systems. Another effective approach is grey water recycling. Water that comes from showers, from ablutions, from laundry, all of these have been recycled and we have been using them for irrigation purposes or toilet flushing. Instead of using really high quality potable water, which we said is very intensive on energy, we can reuse these gray water, which will be much more resource efficient in that case. In hot climates like Dubai, we said the air conditioning system is running throughout throughout the year. In fact, so as they cool indoor, we have a lot of condensate that is being produced, and these condensate are actually very clean water that is extracted from humidity. So rather than allowing this water to be drained off, many buildings now use this, recover and use this for irrigation purposes or even into cooling systems. Irrigation in another area where is another where technology has become a significant difference. Smart irrigation systems use weather forecasts, and even they're able to manage the or understand the soil moisture sensors and automated controls to deliver the right amount of water rather than and at the right time rather than just watering the plants at whatever time of the day. So they are able to gauge as to what how much water will be required and at what point. So these are, and this is definitely improving the landscape performance. Another one is the softscape selection. The plant selection is very important in here because native that are locally available or locally drought tolerant species have already adapted to this kind of weather. Those, those will require a significantly lesser amount of irrigation water, while at the same time they're going to thrive, they're going to remain resilient. Combined with so along all of these are combined with drip irrigation, which delivers water directly to plant roots with minimal evaporation. We can all of these can bring in or reduce the outdoor water use much. Now, having said this, one of the most interesting aspect is that landscaping offers benefits far beyond water conservation by itself. Now we said trees, of course, planting of bigger trees, they provide a lot of shade, reducing surface temperature on pavements and outdoor spaces. Vegetation cools the surrounding, so creating microclimates that we had mentioned, which that makes in more comfortable spaces. So these microclimates and change the environment right around them, making them more comfortable. So thoughtfully designed such green spaces also reduce the urban heat island effect, which we said earlier, where these structures hold on to heat energy, and then expel it later. So when we are planting these, they are able to effectively bring down the temperature. And I think in almost all the developments today, landscaping is no longer a mere aesthetic. It's not just for aesthetic purposes. It has become a very essential component for the environmental performance and resilience and the occupant well-being at the same time. Ultimately, successful water conservation isn't just about water at the expense of quality. It's about every drop that is being used or reused intelligently. Now, having said all this, now if passive design and water efficiency reduce the demand on our building, the next step is about making those buildings intelligent. Let's just quickly look at how smart technologies are transforming sustainable building performances. So today's buildings are no longer considered as just static structures. They are intelligent environments that are able to adapt, capable of sensing, learning, and then they're adapting to the real time. So there are different ways like usage of smart thermostats. So what happens is that it continuously monitor occupancy and environment conditions, allowing the HVAC systems to respond intelligently instead of running at the full capacity all throughout the time. Another one is energy monitoring platforms provide, so they provide real time insights into the energy and the water consumption. So this will help us to figure out if there are inefficiencies and improve performances. Another one is smart lighting systems, where we use LED fixtures or occupancy sensors and daylight controls. So all of these, so what happens is even they are able to align it to the circadian rhythm here in smart lighting systems here. Looking ahead, we also have AI, artificial intelligence. These are taking the building automation into the next level. By so they what they're able to do is they're able to predict the occupancy, they're able to optimize the energy use and identify the maintenance issues even before they occur. So it is important to remember that, having said all of this, we have to understand that these are add-ons. So the fundamental principle, that technology should only enhance a good design, not replace it. So a poorly oriented building with excessive glazing at the wrong positions, expelling energy. So with whatever automation systems, those ones cannot be. AI cannot just replace that. What AI can do or smart building can be done is just to be an add-on to that to enhance it better. So the smartest buildings are those where architecture, engineering, and the digital technologies work together. It's not that if one is there or one is incorporated, that is sufficient. No. Once it works together, that will create a more efficient and resilient design, which is centered more around people or comfort of people. So we looked at technology and we saw how it operates buildings more intelligently. But sustainability extends beyond efficiency. Now we will look at certain biophilic design and wellness focused plannings and how they are reshaping the future of desert architecture. And once we have optimized the passive design techniques, the building envelope, and the material selection, and the next step would definitely be about renewable energy and how that can be integrated into the built environment. So, as we mentioned earlier, we have a lot of sunshine all throughout the year anyway, which is ideally suited for the solar energy. So, photovoltaic panels can be installed on rooftops, podiums, car parks, and even facades to generate clean energy, while solar thermal systems can be efficiently they can provide for hot water for residential and hospitality projects. Another key factor is about battery energy storage, which is another emerging solution, allowing excess energy that can be stored and can be used at peak hours. Now, since we all know that cooling is the largest energy consumer in this particular region, we have district cooling that we have been incorporating, and this offers a highly efficient alternative by supplying chilled water from a plant to multiple buildings, and we know how this has been working. Another one is, as we have seen in the latest trend, that electrical vehicles have become very, very common. So developments are getting future ready. So EV charging infras have been added, and a considerable amount of electrical capacity has been devoted to this particular onset just by itself. Now, these technologies all are adding to UAE's sustainability goals. And not just that, including we have programs like Dubai Clean Energy Strategy 2050 and UAE Net Zero 2050 initiative. So all of these are adding values to these. And the key takeaway is that renewable energy is no longer just a sustainable feature. It's becoming a core part of the high value developments, in fact, where delivering long term environmental, operational, and at the same time, commercial benefits as well from a developer point of view. So In yeah, so this is how it is becoming a value proposition rather than just a mere compliance requirement. Yeah. So technology enables us to create efficient building, we said. But true sustainability is ultimately about the user. It's about the people or the end user. So beyond energy performance, we must also design environments that promote the health, comfort, and of course the well-being of the end user, of the people. This brings us to the next important aspect of sustainable architecture, which is biophilic design. And biophilic design is just not about adding greenery. It's just not green, green, and green. That's not what it is. It is about integrating nature. We are integrating nature, but integrating in such a way that to improve the environmental well-being and the long-term resilience as well of not just a particular space. It's in the long run. It's all about resilience of the entire city. Now, certain principles, certain green integrated green spaces that we have, how it can be integrated is like we can see there are vertical gardens that are being incorporated. There are sky terraces, which and green roof, as we said. This the green roof. These are surfaces where there is a lot of heat storage that happens. So providing green roofs cuts off that space from being able to hold on to the energy, the heat energy that we're talking about. Courtyards bring in a lot of microclimate and communities within, which will also serve for the well-being of people, bringing socially the people together. The same happens with the pocket park as well. Now, all of these directly influences the air quality. It brings down the heat very much. Another key factor is how relaxed the person can be, or how relaxed we all know how busy the life has been in here. So these spaces act as relaxation points, and along with exceptional views. This also, as we said, these also reduces the energy uses, and because the heat energy retention drastically reduces. This brings in a lot of light with a lot of small pocket spaces, which brings in a lot of community interaction, which is socially affecting the well-being of any tenant. So design principles for these are basically how what kind of plant species, or the softscape, that the choice of softscape that we had already mentioned some time ago, which is about the drought tolerant, or which is already accustomed to the local conditions here, which will need lesser irrigation water, or lesser efforts. Another one is, of course, as we mentioned, efficient irrigation systems like drip irrigation, recycled and treated water, the gray water recyclation that we have already mentioned, and shading techniques. Shading techniques, because we will come to this. Shading techniques is basically how walkable a space can be. We will go into this in the next upcoming slides. Now we spoke about architecture, we spoke about materials, we spoke about technology, and nature can improve sustainability. But ultimately, as I just mentioned, our goal isn't just to create an efficient building and it's there. It is to create spaces, effective spaces, where people can thrive. So today's buyers are, in fact, they're no longer purchasing square meters or of premium finishes. No, or just square meters of land. That's not what they're looking at. They are investing into a very healthy lifestyle. So they expect homes that can support their health, their comfort, which will enhance their productivity, and of course their overall well-being. So this shift has given rise to what we call as the wellness centered design. Now, why? Now we will look at why wellness, because wellness imparts directly onto the physical health, the mental well-being, the comfort, the productivity, and of course, in effect, the long-term quality of a life. And it's always designed, wellness design is always designed with people at heart. Finally, of course, when we are all are designing, we all have the final user in mind. So similarly, wellness is designed entirely for the end user. Let's look at certain key points that help with the wellness. So let's begin with the first and the foremost, which is natural daylight. Access to daylight has a very, very profound impact on any physical and mental on any physical and mental health. It regulates our circadian rhythms. It improves our mood. It enhances our productivity. It reduces, of course, dependence on artificial lighting. So all of these, and through the careful orientation, the building orientation, window placement, and effective shading, we can maximize daylight without having too much of glare, and at the same time, without having bringing in a lot of heat energy. The next consideration is the indoor air quality. In most of the modern building, people spend nearly 90% of the time indoors. So clean, healthy indoor air is very critical. Now, how do we do that? High efficiency filtration systems can be done. Low VOC materials can be used. All of these contribute to the healthier indoor environment, and in a way, it finally improves the occupant well-being. Another overlooked aspect, it's this is an often overlooked aspect unless it is a hospitality project, which is acoustic comfort. It is about creating spaces that are very peaceful. Effective acoustic design through insulated walls or high performance glazing and throughout space, these reduces the unwanted noise, and which improves the privacy and supports a better sleep, which is finally coming to better sleep, and therefore bring in lower stress levels, which which is very, very critical in today's life. At the community scale, walkability has become increasingly important. Now, walkability is just what I mentioned a slide or two before. So we know the arid weather here. So during summers, we try and avoid taking the outdoors or walking around outdoor. But this is about creating spaces that are walkable within the community. It can be shaded, it can be through trellises, it can be through pergolas, landscaped, beautiful courtyards, small pocket parks. So all of these. So what we can create connected pedestrian routes, maybe cycling paths, maybe an easier access to amenities, which all of these are encouraging healthier lifestyle. And all of these, what would they would it would create a small microclimate that would in the that makes the outdoor areas more usable. And finally, wellness extends beyond the individual apartment. So most of the developments, increasingly we have exceptional amenities that are more custom made to the people or to the kind of people that we want to cater to. Uh, Most of them include fitness centers, yoga studios, swimming pools, running tracks, play area for children, so on and so forth, meditation gardens, Zen gardens. We have so many of them. So these amenities actually support the physical health, while it also fosters stronger social connections. And that is how all of these, once you have in your own property, that is where you are able to bring in a very strong sense of belonging to that space, which is very important for a happier living. And from my experience in the luxury residential development, one thing that has become very clear, buyers or the end users, they remember how a place makes them feel. So it's not just about, as we mentioned, it's not just about prestigious addresses or anything. It's about how a space can make a final end user feel. So ultimately, wellness centered design is where sustainability is becoming more personal here. It transforms environmental performance into everyday's life, into the everyday life. Now, now we'll see how Dubai's climatic responsive innovations are. To see these principles in action, we will see how Dubai has been incorporating this. So we know the city has embraced solutions like district cooling long ago, which improves the energy efficiency by supplying chilled water, and smart technologies like IoT, AI, and digital infrastructure all have been there to optimize urban operations. Dubai is also accelerating the adoption of renewable energy through large-scale solar projects at both at building level and at a high-performance facades. And these are supported by Dubai's green building regulations, and of course international certifications like LEED, ensuring that sustainability is integrated throughout the design and through the construction process as well. And there are also innovations like digital twins and prefabrication that are making buildings smarter, more efficient, and easier to manage, not only at the time of the handover, all throughout the life cycle of the building. The key is that Dubai's success comes from integrating these technologies, policies, and climate responsive designs into one single vision. It is all integrated into one. So, demonstrating that sustainability is now a fundamental part of the future cities. Now, I'll come to the last topic that is particularly relevant to my own experience, which is in luxury residential development. So, for many years, luxury was defined by more size, exclusivity, premium finishes, and about iconic architecture. While those qualities are still there, they're all there. But my expectations have evolved significantly. It has changed. So today's luxury is being measured by how well a building performs. They ask clients they want to know whether the building is energy efficient, what kind of amenities, what kind of smart technologies are there, whether whether how resilient the building is basically. So all of these questions, all of these are being asked. All of so from a client point of view, the luxury part of luxury is being redefined, and one of the clearest and example is energy efficiency. So the lower energy consumption is no longer seen as a compromise, it is viewed as a very premium feature. So wellness definitely has become part central to key living, I think, thanks to the pandemic. After that, people have become very vigilant on their health and their lifestyle and all of those. So these are being asked for, buyers are asking for very certain points that I already mentioned, like the key indoor, how the quality of the indoor air spaces, how comfortable the temperature is, do we have natural daylight, do we have excellent most of the hospital projects ask for acoustics, and of course meaningful connections to the nature as well. So these factors contribute directly to the quality of life and are increasingly influencing purchasing decisions. Another one is material selection, in another area where sustainability and luxury align. Premium materials are no longer chosen solely for the appearance. It is how effectively, or how effectively it can reduce on the environmental impact also. Technology is transforming the way people experience their homes, of course. Smart automation is kind of becoming a mandate, which will help them, in fact, to optimize the use of lighting, optimize weather, MEP, air conditioning services, all of these. So these systems enhance both the comfort and sustainability at the same time. And I think most importantly, sustainable design, it creates a long-term value as well. So efficient buildings are cost lesser when it comes to operate, and lesser maintenance. Therefore, so in the long run, it is going to bring in bigger returns to whoever, whether it be the investor or the developer or the buyer. So whoever it is, it's going to bring in a lot of return as well. From a developer point of view, sustainability is no longer just a a meeting check. No, because it has become a very competitive advantage, which will sell off also quickly. Now, throughout the presentation, we have seen how passive design, traditional architecture, high performance envelopes, materials, renewable energy, all of these, and even the biophilic designs we have seen. So, each of these strategies contribute to one common goal, and when we are bringing it down, it's just about creating buildings that perform better, not only environmentally, but also for the people. So, as designers, our responsibility extends beyond creating visually impressive buildings. We have the opportunity to shape the community here, and that is how resource efficient or resilient, and at the same time very how enjoyable that space is going to be. Now, as we look ahead, it's clear that the future of desert architecture will be shaped by the technology, sustainability, and of course, how human-centered the design can be. So our goal is no longer just to just construct buildings that can stand the harsh weather. No, we aim to create environments that will actually respond to them. And some of the transformative developments that we are using is, one is the AI assisted design, artificial intelligence. It helps architects and engineers to rapidly evaluate multiple design scenarios when we are designing, right from the onset of the design processes. Another one is digital twin, which is a major advancement. So, unlike the BIM model, a digital twin is connected to live operational data. So, this can even detect. Uh, it allows owners and FM to monitor how the building performs. It predicts how the maintenance requirements that can be required, or how to optimize the energy that can be used. All of these can be taken care, or that will be looked after by the digital twin. And we are witnessing a shift towards the net zero buildings. These projects combine both passive design, these high efficient systems, renewable energy, all of this, and carefully the carbon management as well, to minimize the emissions as much as possible. So that would bring us to carbon neutral material selection that would become a strategic sustainable decision. So low carbon concrete or recycled materials, sometimes bio-based materials, and how resilient they are. So all of these impart into the decision making of the material selection. Along with the concept of this, there is circular economy. So instead of designing buildings that are eventually going to be demolished as demolition waste, we are beginning to design for adaptability, disassembly, and the material reuse as well. So future buildings will serve as long-term valuable materials as well. Construction methods in today's time is also evolving. So robotics, drones, automated quality control, all of these are taking, and also there are adaptive facades that are enabling adaptive facades. So where the building will respond dynamically to the changing weather conditions. All of these are taken into consideration. Finally, I think we must think beyond individual buildings. So the future lies in a climate responsive city, where urban environments that would integrate renewable energy, green infra, water sensitive planning, mobility, healthy public spacing, walkability that we just mentioned, all of these. So, as designers and developers, our responsibility extends beyond creating just iconic buildings. We are shaping the entire cities for tomorrow, for the future generation. And every design decision that we make today does influence that future generation, how they work, how they live, and how they interact with the environment. It's not about, so future of design desert architecture is not about building smarter building, but rather it's about building responsibly and building for the resilience of tomorrow. Now, as we conclude, we'll just summarize through all of what we went through today. First was design with the climate, not against it. So the desert should never be seen as a limitation, rather. Okay, it has a lot of potential, and there's a lot of room for innovation in there. Second is prioritize the passive design, building orientation, shadings, ventilation, thermal mass. All of these effectively add value to the economic strategies for improving the building performance. Third, we spoke about another key resource, which is water and the conservation of this. This is very critical. Being in an arid region here, every drop matters. So, through efficient fixtures and water recycling, condensate recovery, um, irrigation techniques, all of these, we will significantly reduce the demand of one of the most valuable resources that we have. Fourth is about energy efficiency, begins with design by itself. High performance building envelopes, the renewable energy systems, smart controls all contribute to reducing the operational energy while creating more comfortable indoor environments. We said we will embrace technology, but thoughtfully. AI will not, AI, digital twin, all will will be add-ons and which will add value, but that does not compromise on the design techniques at any cost. Last, we said about creating healthier communities. Sustainability is not about reducing the energy or not about just reducing the carbon emissions, about finally improving the people's lives. So access to the daylight, fresh air, walkable spaces, microclimates, all of these are directly contributing to the health of the end user. And those are majorly taken into consideration. Finally, sustainability and luxury are no longer separate ambitions. Today's premium developments demonstrate that environmental responsibility, efficiency, and the user experiences, they all do coexist. In fact, these qualities increasingly define what modern luxury means. So if there is one message I hope you all take away what from today's session, it is that great architecture does more than just respond to today's needs. It anticipates tomorrow's challenges, and by designing with climate, embracing certain innovations, and placing people at the center of every decision, we can create buildings and cities that are not only just sustainable but at the same time inspiring and enduring. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Revathi. What I found particularly interesting was the way you brought together luxury, design identity, and sustainability rather than treating them as separate priorities. Especially in the desert context, the decisions around the envelope, materials, walls, wellness, and water and technology can actually become a part of the quality and experience of a development, not simply something we do for compliance. And I think that gives us a lot to unpack. And so we're now going to move very quickly to our moderated Q&A session,
All
where
right.
I'd like to pick up a few of the ideas you've presented and explore them in a little more depth. And then towards the end, we'll open the floor to our audience for questions as well. We're running a little short on time, so we're going to have these question answers a little bit quicker than usual.
Okay.
So let me start with something you said about the changing meaning of luxury. So, you made this point that luxury is evolving from simply having more to deliver, having more, as a concept, luxury isn't just about accumulating or having more, but to rather deliver better living, having better living and what better living looks like, with a lower environmental impact, with intelligent design, which responds to the user's needs, well-being, and what well-being means to the user, and long-term value. From your experience in luxury, residential, and hospitality, what do clients and developers increasingly mean by luxury today?
Okay. Uh, I'm audible, right? Yeah. Okay. So today's the clients have slightly changed. So what they are, it's not of 5 years ago. What we used to expect from a luxury buyer was entirely different. That time it was just merely about maybe location, maybe a brand, maybe the size of the, or maybe, as we said, premium finishes. But today there's a major shift. It is more on the how wellness focused living it can be, and how that can support their physical and mental well-being. Sometimes they ask on how smart or what kind of how sustainable and environmentally responsible it is, because that what they're looking for is how smart that particular property is, how sustainable materials are being used, is there any kind of water conservation that is happening. So these are all, they have all become a marker of quality and sophistication. Despite this, they are asking for something that is, because after all, once you buy this, it's more about personalization and identity as well. So they want residences that reflect their identity there. They want bespoke interiors, maybe curated amenities, and that all of these would actually bring in a sense of what would it say, a sense of belonging to that kind of property. So all of these, so if we want to say in simple words, they're not looking for one particular product, they're looking for an experience. They're not looking for a mere opulence. They are looking for a utilitarian luxury, in fact, something that can be used for the well-being. And at the same time, they are not looking for static homes, because homes are no longer static. They are expecting that to be intelligent and adaptive ecosystems. So all of these are being asked for, and that again, wherein they can bring in a sense of belonging to that particular property as well. Udit, you're on mute.
Thanks for that. So you're saying that it's something that people are looking for as luxury defined not just by showing off something or having something of high value necessarily, but something that actually responds, adds value through not necessarily monetary value, but adds value through the quality of life, and something which actually enriches their life on a day-to-day basis, not
Right.
necessarily through objects or through acquiring specific expensive things. So
Right.
that's a very fundamental shift in the definition of how luxury is being perceived, especially in the home segment. And that really kind of changes the way we look at things and think about things as what luxury really means. Coming to my next question, which is about designing for the desert. You highlighted that desert environments demand a very different response to heat, solar radiation, water scarcity, and the high cooling demand. So, when you're involved from the early design stages, climate responsive decisions, which climate responsive decisions have the greatest impact in your experience? What have you seen that actually responds very well to desert climates? And what is it that also is often missed out, or something that our viewers could possibly learn in terms of a small shift that actually has a positive impact?
Okay, I think in simple words, as I said, these practices have to be incorporated at a very earlier stage. The passive design strategies that I'd mentioned, right from, I would say, or even before the pre-concept, because how thoroughly we study a site is very key for a project. And I would say the orientation of that particular building or structure on that site is very critical. This is the very fundamental thing, and I think most of us go wrong there, because I wouldn't blame anyone, because what happens is when we are given a document with the DCR or with the site affection plan, we are already told this is how you, this is the placement that we're looking for. But so what in a common practice, what we do here is maybe just follow that, and then sometimes this orientation or the placement of that particular building with respect to that site is often missed out. So there we are starting mistakes right from there. Now that is one. Number two, as we said, this I will not call it a mistake, because aesthetically appealing buildings are non-negotiable now. So that is being worked on definitely. And what happens is, so when you have a lot of glazed facade and all of that, that has to be effectively treated in such a way that you do not bring in a lot of heat energy. So those are basic fundamental ones. So the opening of the building, so where your opening comes, are there enough shading techniques? All of these are basic things, but that are usually, I think, generally missed out.
Perfect. Coming to my third question, which is about passive design before technology even comes into the building. So you brought traditional desert strategies such as courtyards, shading, thermal mass, and natural ventilation into the discussion. So how can contemporary luxury developments reinterpret these ideas which have been there throughout traditionally, without making them feel like something superficial or just painted on, on the surface, and something that actually works, something that actually, has a performance impact on the thermal aspects of the building?
I think these were the traditional practices that were carried out at some point of time. And even now, I strongly believe we are using the same thing. We are using the same principles. It may or may not look like it. But if I say, for example, I'll just pick it up like this. Say today's maybe double skin facades. Okay, those are coming from the same idea. So same idea of those traditional architecture. Another one is the solar chimneys, how responsive the facades are. All of these ideas are coming from the previous one. The screens, we have screens which are definitely a part of the aesthetics of building. This is coming from the idea of Mashrabiyya. So what we're doing is we at some point or the other, we are definitely picking up ideas from the past, from the old architecture, and we are using them in some form or the other.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now my next question comes to the building envelope. You describe the envelope as an integrated system of orientation, shading, the facade, glazing, insulation, and its airtightness. In a high-end development where aesthetics and architectural identity are extremely important, given the prime importance, how do you balance these, expressions into the facade systems and bring in thermal performance, where you're also prioritizing luxury in your developments?
I would, in simple words, I would simply say it is the choice of materials that matters here mostly, because here we are not in a position to be compromising on either. We cannot compromise on the aesthetics of the building, but at the same time, we cannot compromise on the energy efficiency as well. So there, one of the simple examples that I told you was when we are using, for most premium developments, we are proposing triple glazing, not double glazing. So that is one little way of using the how the building envelope is being used. And for the roofing system, I'm just saying practical experiences. Even in the biophilic architecture, when I was going through this, I had mentioned how on the roof we have vegetation, we have also vertical gardens. All of these, what they are adding aesthetic value, they are adding a premium finish or premium look, but at the same time they are cutting off the heat from the outside to the inside. So these are little techniques that we are trying to incorporate to both make the building energy efficient, at the same time use these techniques as well.
Fantastic. So that kind of moves me towards my materials question. Your presentation highlighted low embodied carbon and locally sourced materials. So, at the same time, we're also considering durability of the building. and the material, also talking about UV exposure and sand. So, how should material selection in the UAE change or evolve when we look beyond the initial costs and the capital costs, or when we look beyond the aesthetics and try to think of the entire building as a living organism with an entire life cycle? How would this kind of evolve?
Okay, the material choices are more. I think first and the foremost basic idea, fundamental thought should be how what is the purpose of the choice? Like, what purpose is being served here? So is it just aesthetic? Is it thermal? Because there are certain projects that we have certain guidelines that have to be followed. So there the purpose really matters. So what we said about look, as we said, certain product, so certain materials that when we are being transported, that also brings in a lot of carbon emission, all of that. So when we are using a locally sourced material, that is more compatible to that particular region. But we also see if that is what is aligned to what the design asks for or the aesthetics asks for. So there, what we basically look at is what is the purpose, what is the aesthetically, if it is appealing, how resilient it is, the material by itself, and how what I would say, how responsibly sourced it can be as well, and in the long run, what kind of effect it can have on the people.
So now moving to a specific resource, water as part of luxury. Water efficiency is particularly important in the UAE, and you discussed low flow fixtures, grey water, condensate recovery, smart irrigation, and drought tolerant landscaping. How can we make water conservation feel like an enhancement to the luxury experience rather than a compromise?
Okay, water. See, making water conservation should be more or less invisible. That's how it should start. So it should happen. It should happen seamlessly behind the scenes without affecting the user experience. That's when we said low flow fixtures, where we are using low flow fixtures, but that provides excellent water pressure, it provides water conservation, but at the same time, without disrupting the comfort of the final end user, or without compromising on the premium design part. And we are also using smart technologies like smart showers. We are using sensors, irrigation systems. The irrigation system has a lot of innovation that has come in, because, as I mentioned before, uh, when we are creating beautiful landscapes, first is we choose the choice of the softscape plays a major role. Another one is how because in smart technology, we are able to detect how much water is required and at what point of time, rather than just watering or irrigation just happening at any point. So that brings down the demand of water way less, to way less. So these are definitely techniques which can bring in the luxury part of water. Meaning conservation becomes a very key feature. It becomes a very design feature. It is integrate where it has to be integrated from the beginning to be seamless as well. Because if you are able to see this, or if it directly impacts the user, then it does not become seamless. It hinders. So these decisions are to be taken at a much earlier stage as well.
All right. So integrating water into the luxury narrative itself makes it not only beautiful to look at, but also functional and thematic. Wonderful. So that's a beautiful way to look at how water can become part of the project and how it's an integral part of the project all throughout. Coming to my next question, which is about wellness and sustainability and how they speak to each other. So, one of your strongest themes is that the future of luxury is also about a building that makes people feel, how it makes people feel. And how do you see wellness, natural light, air quality, green space, thermal comfort, even social interaction and connection between humans becoming measurable parts of sustainable residential and hospitality design?
Okay. Here, wellness actually, as I had mentioned earlier, this has become a part of. Wellness is just not. It's just not again add on. It has to be embedded into the architecture. It's not just through biophilic design or balance of the nature. It strikes a balance with what we see outside along with the normal circadian rhythm. So that can be through superior air quality, how walkable the space is with natural light. So these that is one part of the wellness part. But another one is how sustainability can, or the wellness part of the sustainability can be synonym with the luxury part. It has a greater effect on the energy efficiency. It has it how responsible the material choices can be, water conservations can be. All of these finally will impact into the wellness part. So as I mentioned earlier, luxury is just not about it's about creating timeless spaces. Okay. And how a person or an end user can feel in that space, that is very key. The most luxurious development will not be upon on the scale or the finish by itself. It is definitely about how a person can feel in that space. So it's not about, as I mentioned earlier, it's not about how the product by itself is. It is how about experience. And you had also rightly said before, it's not about how materialistic things are. It's about how the lifestyle is being changed. It's not just opulence. It's not. That's what we say. It's not just addresses. It's about how effectively it has a good effect on your well-being, on the end user's well-being. So all of these will also definitely bring in a strong sense of emotional connectivity to that space as well, which brings in a sense of belonging, because that happens only when there are personalized experiences, which personalized spaces which will prioritize their physical health and mental well-being as well. That is why when we are choosing amenities for a particular kind of structure of a particular kind of project, those amenities are in fact curated for that particular end user. Definitely when we are designing a project, we are targeting the end user. So those amenities are going to be curated for that particular end user, and that is how. So finally the end user will be able to create or will have a sense of belonging to that space. So it's about creating timeless, I would say, human centric communities where we are designing for the human, that would deliver both emotional and value adding investment as well.
Wonderful. So, keeping the user in mind, right at the center of everything, of every strategy, of every plan, of every design, and seeing what that user really needs in their, use of that space, and making it as user appropriate as possible, is where and how wellness can actually make things easier for the person, make them feel, seamless with when they integrate with these spaces. Okay, now coming to sustainability and kind of moving into the larger questions about this discussion. When we're talking about sustainability as a business proposition, and this is what everybody is kind of struggling with, dealing with, finding new ways to address and strategizing around. How do you make sustainability a business proposition? So you made a strong argument that sustainability is becoming a value proposition rather than simply a compliance requirement. And from a developer's perspective, how do we make the business case for sustainable design in terms of operational cost, asset value, marketability, and even the long-term return on investment? The ROI also is something that kind of makes this, actually move forward. So how do all of these things kind of come together as a business proposition where developers actually buy into it?
Okay. So All throughout the presentation, we spoke about the wellness part, we spoke about the biophilic elements, we spoke about sustainability, and how the smart tech can be added, incorporated, and all of this will, in a way, optimize the performance of the building or of the structure. Now, the greatest value of project is when all of these are embedded into the project from the onset, so that it is very effectively working. All right. Now, when integrated strategically, these principles, it enhances the project. It enhances, I would say, the first thing is it would enhance the brand value of the project. It would enhance the user satisfaction. So once it enhances the brand value, once it enhances the user satisfaction, it will definitely increase the occupancy and the retention. And that means it will deliver stronger long term returns for the developers and the investor. So, wellness and sustainability, they are not really optional. They are, in fact, strategic investments. So, in such a way that that will enhance the user experience, that will reduce the operational costs on the long run. And once it reduces the operational cost in the long run, it will strengthen the asset value. And that means that will bring in a lot of long term commercial success for the project as well.
Fantastic. So I think with that, knowledge, we can expect that there'll be more and more such uh, business propositions for sustainability that we, see as changing in the market. My final question to you is, as we look forward, you ended your presentation describing future desert cities as a combination of intelligent buildings, AI, renewable energy, nature-based solutions, real-time data, circular resource management, and human-centered design at the heart of it. So if you were to choose one shift that will most change the way we design premium development in the UAE, and we're talking about luxury development here. So over the next decade, let's take the long-term view and look into 10 years down the line. What do we see, as this change?
Okay. Let's look at it like this. Let's imagine a situation. Let's imagine a building that predicts cooling demand. That is cooling demand even before the temperature peaks. Okay. Now it adjusts the lighting based on the occupancy and the daylight, and also based on the circadian rhythm. Okay. It manages water consumption intelligently, of course, all throughout. And also it is able to schedule maintenances before the equipment fails. So this is the kind of vision that we have, and this is not a distant vision. We are almost there. It's beginning to happen. We are already there. So this is what we are envisioning for the future. So the biggest shift from now, what we see is the sustainable building that we have right now to be more intelligent, to to be more adaptive to the end user. So imagine a space that would adapt to your needs. That kind of space is what we are looking for in the future. Buildings will become, will then just not static assets. It they can, I mean, that can, they will be able to optimize using AI and the real time data, and then it can act intelligently for the user satisfaction. So that kind of AI driven building management is what we are looking for in the future.
All right. Thank you very much, Revathi. That was a great note to end the moderated part of our conversation. We've already covered a lot today, and from climate responsive design, materials, water, wellness, smart buildings, and evolving the meaning of luxury in the desert. I'd now like to very quickly open this up to our audience and see if we have any audience questions before we close this session for today. Right. So we have one audience question. The question is about sustainability, wellness, and technology becoming more integrated into luxury developments. Um, what is one sustainability measure that developers and clients often hesitate to spend on at the beginning, and which you believe can really deliver significant long-term value to a project?
What is one? Could you please repeat? What is one sustainability?
One sustainability measure
Mhm.
which can really deliver significant impact in terms of long-term value for a project.
I think it would be definitely the choice of materials is what a sustainable measure that is not really taken into a serious consideration. We still tend to use the most comfortable or the convenient choices. This is where we are, because if we are able to make or make really responsible decisions in terms of sustainability when it comes to material choices, I think a lot of um, a lot will change. A lot will change when it comes to the when we comes mainly when it comes to the heat retention power of these materials. And that, just imagine the energy that is being stored on each building system by itself, and we are in a forest of buildings here. So that itself raises the temperature because these buildings are holding on to those. So I think the material choice is one key part which has to be taken care of, which will adversely and positively have an impact on sustainability as well.
Well, I think that's a great answer, and I think that's a good place to wrap up for today. Revathi, thank you once again for joining us today and for sharing your experience and insights with us. I think one of the key takeaways from today's conversation is that sustainability, design, excellence, and luxury don't have to be competing priorities. In the desert, they can actually reinforce one another through better comfort, smarter use of resources, healthier environments, and long term value. So, thank you to everyone who joined us today and took part in the conversation. And Revathi, thank you once again for being part of Designing for the Desert. Until next
Thank you.
time, stay curious, stay climate conscious, and keep designing with purpose. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine. Thank you.